If you're like most people going into retirement, most of your nest egg or what you have invested for retirement is in your 401k that's coming from work. And with that being the bulk of your savings that you have and what is going to carry you into and through retirement, that begs the question, what should you do with your 401k to make the most of it when you go to retire? Well, that's why I made this video here today. I wanted to walk you through your options, make sure that you're able to make an educated decision around what to do with your 401k when you're transitioning into retirement, to make sure you're confident with what you're doing, and to make sure you're doing what is best for you and your family with transitioning into retirement. If we haven't gotten to meet yet, my name is Dylan Martin, certified financial planner with Stewardship Investments. I love working with families to help them be good stewards and to retire well. So let's jump into the video here. So the big question is, what do you do with your 401k? And it may seem like it's a fairly easy and straightforward question of like, of course I'm going to do this, or of course I'm going to do that, keep it in the 401k, pull money from it, move it to an IRA. But there really are a lot of nuances around decisions to be made around your 401k. And if you make the wrong decision, this could end up costing you a lot of money in your retirement. And like I said a second ago, that's why I want to inform you, help you make an educated decision so that's not you. So I'm going to walk you through a couple different decision points around what you could be doing with your 401k. So very simply, you could cash out your entire 401k. So that is, take the money out of the 401k, go straight into your bank account. The whole amount is taxable at that point. Probably not your best option, but it is an option. You can leave that money in the 401k, so just leave it in that account that you already have through the employer and it can stay there. Or you can move that money from a 401k over to a IRA or Roth IRA, depending on if you had Roth or pre-tax contributions in the 401k. And that transfer from the 401k to the IRA or Roth is a tax-free transfer. It's just moving it over from one account to another. So you may be asking, well, when would I leave it in the 401k, or when would I move it over to the IRA? Well, there's several different factors here that I wanted to walk you through to help you answer that exact question there. So what I believe is the most important thing to be looking at is your level of control that you have with the different types of accounts. Typically with a 401k, you're going to have less control. All 401k plans are not created equal. Some make it easier than others to do various things like rebalance your investment portfolio, or to make a withdrawal, or to do different strategic things like Roth conversions. And this may not seem like a very big deal. Like, as long as you're able to do those things, why does it matter that much if it's a little bit easier here or there? Well, why that is, if you're being honest with yourself, if something's not quite easy, or if it's hard to figure out, you're most likely not going to do it. I know that's the case for my own life. I have to be a little bit strategic with how I want to set up different habits I want to build, or just different things I'm doing in my life to make sure that it's actually going to get done. And that's a big thing with personal finance overall. You want to make things automated, make it easy. You want to create the least amount of friction as possible so that these things actually get done. And there could be a huge hidden cost there if you actually don't end up getting these things done, like doing the strategic Roth conversions if that's great for your situation. Or let's say taking withdrawals are difficult, so you take more than you need at one time, and that may create a big tax bill. These are things that could happen, and then the hidden cost there is very large for your long-term retirement success. And with all of that being said, all of those things are typically much easier in an IRA. It's typically much easier to do Roth conversions, to rebalance, and to take withdrawals. So you do have an extra layer of control with doing those sorts of things, as well as with your investment choices. With the 401k, you typically have limited investment choices, and those are not always bad. A lot of times those choices are vetted, so there could be some good options there. But typically with your IRA, you're going to have thousands of different investment options. You're able to have the best of the best and low cost options. And that's a good segue there. The next thing to be considering is your costs. So like I said, you typically do have limited choices within that 401k, and a lot of times those investment choices can be expensive as far as their expense ratios. And then with the 401k plan itself, different admin expenses like your record keeping, or there could even be an advisory fee on that. So it's just good to know what those costs are there. And then, like I said, with the IRA, you typically have many more investment options, so you can find lower cost options in that IRA. That's not to say that there aren't low cost options in your 401k. That's just something to be aware of with the different costs if you're going to make that choice between, do I keep it in the 401k, do I move it to the IRA? Another thing you should be looking at when trying to make this decision around what to do with your 401k is simplicity. And this goes back a little bit to what I was saying around control. If your 401k platform makes it difficult to carry forth different planning techniques or just to get money from to live, well, it may make things simpler for you to get it moved over to an IRA where that could be easier. Another way that this can play out as far as trying to solve for simplicity is you may have tons of old 401ks from different jobs. I've seen families come in to work with us that have half a dozen different 401k plans from every employer they worked with along the way. They didn't bother to consolidate along the way, move that 401k into the next one, or consolidate those into an IRA as they moved along. And the reason that that can be problematic is, well, if you're trying to manage how your account's going to be invested, or if you're trying to have a certain type of portfolio, say 60-40 or 70-30, where 60 to 70% of your account is in stocks while 40 to 30% is in bonds, well, how do you manage that between all those different accounts? What is that even going to look like? And like we said earlier, if it's not easy to make these different planning things happen that need to happen, they're probably not going to. So one way to make that simple is to get all of those accounts consolidated either into your most recent 401k or all into an IRA. So be looking to solve for simplicity to make things easy on yourself when transitioning to retirement. So those are the considerations as far as comparing the two, but there are some other nuanced situations that I wanted to walk you through that aren't necessarily comparative between a 401k and IRA, but that you should factor into the equation when deciding what to do with your 401k. One thing to consider is if you're younger than 59 and a half, you can actually take penalty-free distributions from your 401k starting at 55. So if you are looking to retire earlier than that 59 and a half, coordinating your 401k to pull income from is something to consider as far as if you're going to leave maybe all or just some of your money into that 401k so you can be pulling penalty-free distributions from that leading up to 59 and a half. Of course, there are other ways to solve for that problem, things like the 72T distribution, or if you have money set aside in a brokerage account, different things like that. But there is that option there that you can start pulling money from the 401k at 55 without taking that penalty. So you just want to see how that's going to fit into your overall income plan if you're retiring before 59 and a half. The next two things here are just more so things to be aware of within your 401k if you are going to move it. For one, if you have employer stocks within your 401k plan, you have an option to do what is called net unrealized appreciation. And with net unrealized appreciation, or NUA for short, doesn't necessarily fit everyone's situation, but if you have a company stock in your 401k, especially if it's appreciated a lot, this could be something that could be really helpful for your efficiency and planning going into retirement. So if you have company stock that has appreciated, you have the option to, instead of rolling that stock over into your IRA, you can actually move that over into a taxable brokerage account. And what that looks like is the basis of that stock is taxed at your current income rate, and then the gain portion is taxed at capital gains rates. So could be much more favorable for your situation. So how net unrealized appreciation works, let's say you have company stock in your 401k, the value of that is $100,000, but your basis is $20,000. When you move that company stock to the brokerage account, your basis, that $20,000, is taxed at ordinary income at that moment. And then the $80,000 of gain will get taxed at capital gains rates whenever you go to sell that stock. So that could be much more favorable for you than moving that whole amount to your IRA and then all of that getting taxed at your ordinary income tax rates when you go to take that money out down the road. And lastly here, just wanted to touch on, if you have after-tax money in your 401k, then this is something else just to be aware of how this works before you look to move any money out of the 401k. So with after-tax money, let's say that you have $100,000 of after-tax contributions in your 401k, and that $100,000 of contributions has grown to $200,000, so there's $200,000 total in your 401k. Well, the $100,000 of your actual contributions, the basis, would get rolled over to a Roth IRA, while the gains would get rolled over to a traditional IRA that's pre-tax. So if that's not caught, moving that over could get messed up. Maybe all of that gets moved over into your traditional IRA and it gets double taxed. But to make things even simpler, you can see if you have the option within your 401k plan to do an in-service conversion where you can just convert that after-tax money over to Roth before you even would look to move that over into an IRA. So you just want to check with your plan documents with the rules there to see if that is an option. Well, I hope that this video was helpful for you guys and that you feel like you are educated to go and make a great decision with your 401k to set yourselves up well for transitioning into retirement. If you would like to talk through these options with someone, I'd be happy to help any way that I can. You can actually schedule a free retirement consultation with myself. You can click the link below in the bio to do that. We can talk through options with your 401k and any other retirement planning questions that you have. Or if you're just curious to see if you're on track for retirement, there's also a link below in our bio that goes to our website. You can take our quick 2-minute retirement readiness quiz, get a personalized response to see if you're on track for retirement. And if this video was helpful for you, please make sure you like and subscribe to get more content like this going forward and to make sure that this content can get to other people, be helpful for them as well. I would greatly appreciate that. Other than that, hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you guys in the next video.